So in my opinion, the best buddy cop movie of all time is Hot Fuzz. But, I also kind of like the Bad Boys films. There were even plans to make a fourth one, but for reasons, it got postponed indefinitely. Anyway, while I definitely don't consider them to be the pinnacle of cinema, I do enjoy them, and apparently others did as well, because this franchise has grossed over $840 million, and that means one thing.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
So Miami Takedown was created to capitalise on the release of the second film. However, things didn't quite go to plan, because instead of releasing alongside the film, it released the following year when the hype was long dead. Then again, I'm not sure how much different release date would have made, because like most games of its type, it's shit. It has none of the charm and charisma that the films do, and almost every single moment is about as enjoyable as belt sanding your own face. Anyway, without further ado, let's see how bad this game really is. Okay, so Bad Boys 2 should not be called Bad Boys 2, because without its cover, honestly saying this has anything to do with Bad Boys is extremely dubious. As far as I'm aware, this game isn't canon, which is good because everyone's a new character bar 3 people. Mike, Marcus and Captain Howard, who's basically just a cameo anyway, so it's just Mike and Marcus, which is fine. I mean, they are the main characters, but yeah.
Okay, go on.
Go on what?
Man, I can feel you staring at me and it's making my skin crawl.
Yeah, so that's not Will Smith or Martin Lawrence, and ironically, the only way you'd be convinced they are Will Smith or Martin Lawrence is if you hadn't seen the films. And yes, I know celebs don't always come back to voice their characters, but at least get someone who can do a half-decent impression, because this is clearly 2 random blokes. And I think they must have realised how bad they were, because they have like 8 lines of in-game dialogue, which by the way, is all triggered by excessive gunfire. So you can imagine the amount of repeated lines is phenomenal.
You spraying bullets everywhere today. Still not getting any at home? You spraying bullets everywhere today. Still not getting any at home? You spraying bullets everywhere today. Still not getting any at home?
I should also add, it's not just the voice acting. These character models also look nothing like them. In fact, Marcus looks more like Will than Martin Lawrence, and Mike looks nothing like either of them. I mean, I can sort of understand them not sounding the same, but to have them look totally different as well? Can we even class these as the same characters anymore? Anyway, in terms of actual plot, it's your standard take down a gang, then a Colombian drug lord, only it feels 100 times more generic because they've ripped out the heart of what made Bad Boys entertaining and replaced it with royalty-free Will Smith. Oh, and you won't understand a fucking thing that's going on, because even after playing it and reviewing hours of footage, I still have a hard time explaining what actually happens. Like, nothing you do feels connected. I'm pretty sure all but 3 of its 15 missions could be in any order and it wouldn't make a difference. No joke, they even have a plot twist I didn't even fucking notice. Like, there's a bit in the opening cutscene where a TNT agent is murdered, only to show up later on working for the drug lord you're trying to kill. And it took me until I was timestamping the footage days later to realise it's the same guy. Granted, it was partly because I was lobotomized by sheer boredom, but still, you get an idea of how confusing this game is. So this is your standard corridor shooter. Just kick down some doors, shoot some bad guys, fight a boss, then rinse and repeat for the next 3 to 4 hours. The only real change in gameplay is the occasional sniper section, which are about as much fun as eating glass and drag on for what feels like 10 years. Oh, and you have a bunch of weapons to use and bulletproof vests for armor. Now, with such simple gameplay, you'd expect it to be okay, or playable. But as expected, this is none of those things, and playing it is a fucking chore. Mainly because Miami Takedown is a prime example of a game where all the elements that make it hard are completely out of the player's control. For example, the gunplay is some of the worst I've ever experienced, due largely to the world's most selective lock-on system. I swear, unless you're shooting something at point blank range, it's a gamble as to if it will actually work. And this paired with sensitivity settings so slow you'll be visibly older by the time you've turned around means you spend the whole game battling the controls instead of the actual enemies. I should also add this is made either better or worse depending on what weapon you're using, and no, not in the traditional sense that some are more powerful than others. What I mean is depending on how fucked they are, the difficulty varies, because for some reason the amount of damage you do is a complete gamble. Sometimes enemies go down in one shot, and sometimes it's 5.
You messing with the...
This even extends to shotguns at point blank range.
Smell cheap aftershave.
You gotta be kidding. Oh, crap. Rushes!
The only weapon I found to be consistently useful was the machine guns, as their high damage and rate of fire mean you don't have to rely on the disgusting lock-on system. Although because they're the most fun to use, in true shovelware game fashion, they've made getting them annoyingly difficult. See, this game can't be normal. No, it has to be different. And in this case, different means if you want a better gun, you have to shoot it out of an enemy's hand. Oh, and what you just saw is my one and only example of this, because the game never outright tells you it's a thing. So I went back and tried this later on, and as expected, it's a complete mess. I mean, yes, you might get a better weapon, but the eternity spent out of cover means the enemies have more than enough time to cut your health in half. And this is a massive issue because the game's god-awful health pack placement makes healing a Herculean feat. In each level there are either no health packs or they've been placed in immensely unhelpful locations. For example, the start of a mission when your health's already full, or 3 right next to each other and the rest of the mission has sweet fuck all. See, surprisingly enough, the enemies aren't one-bang machines. Well, not all of them anyway.
God damn it, Black Red!
But since healing is such a bastard, they'll eventually whittle down your health at the very end of a level and then you'll die. Oh, and because there are no checkpoints, you'll have to do the whole level all over again. In addition to this, the game's own mechanics are likely to get you killed. For example, the cover system, don't use it. Don't even think about it, because it's about as useful as a concrete parachute. The problem is that the normally brain-dead AI are exceptionally fast and will shoot you the instant they see you. They're actually so broken they can shoot straight down while aiming forward 10 feet above you. This means the time needed to use the cover system is ample opportunity for them to damage you can't heal because there are no health packs. And the game quickly becomes a frustrating endurance battle where you constantly die at the end of missions. And finally, I'd like to mention the design is all over the place. Boring maps and reused models aside, a lot of features just don't make sense. For example, the rating system that apparently rewards you for a certain playstyle makes absolutely no difference. Also, the perfect cop rating is tied to the game's ridiculous disarming feature, so unless you're willing to spend your time not killing people and then dying because of it, then reaching perfect cop is pointless. The game also has elements that are very clearly half finished, because there's a level where you start with a silenced pistol, and anyone who's ever played a video game would think, oh, this is a stealth section. I mean, the game even tells you to fucking sneak, but no, of course not. Because no matter how much you crouch, every enemy knows where you are, and the silenced pistol will alert people just like the regular one. I even looked on YouTube to see if I was doing something wrong, and I wasn't. The game literally tells you to do something you can't do. Okay, so this game isn't bad all the time, just most of the time. Admittedly, there were some fleeting moments of enjoyment when it wasn't being a gigantic pain in the arse. And it has surprisingly solid destructible environments, although I didn't even notice this at the time because I was either too bored or too frustrated, but regardless, they obviously put a lot of work into it. Bit weird considering the rest of the game has seemingly no effort at all, but you know, there you go. Things break and it's not bad. So is this the worst game ever? Absolutely not. It's actually pretty high up the list when you compare it to stuff like Little Britain. I mean, yes, it is bland, repetitive, and unnecessarily difficult, but it's nowhere near the bottom of the list. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.